John. Thursday evening, the kids are away,
Yep.
so you've come in to join us. Welcome.
Exactly.
Along.
You called us up and said, Frank's just been put in charge on an interim basis. I need to have my say.
Yeah, exactly. I need to come back and have my say on what's been going on, and hopefully we can all understand what's been going on at the club. It seems to me like the decision makers really, and I don't know if they're making decisions right, but for me it just seems like they're bringing so many different players and it's just not working, really.
It is. I mean, they've spent exorbitant sums. I mean, we'll get to that. Let's start with your old mucker, Frank Lampard.
Yeah.
Delighted for him. I mean, as a friend and as a former colleague, happy that he's back in the dugout?
Yeah, I'm very happy. I mean, I think last time he was at the club, I think he did really well. I think he started really well. He brought the likes of Mason Mount into the club, into the scene. Young players into the scene, and the club were, the team were playing really well. But I think towards the end of his stay, I mean, things were not going well for him, and then the club decided to sack him. But I think if you look at Frank and if you look at the way he's been speaking since he came back, I think you can feel maybe there's a little bit of unfinished business. And because he's been there before, he knows the club. I think now he probably knows the mistakes that he make, and he wouldn't make them again. So, yeah.
If we're being generous here, because his record at Everton does not suggest that he was the guy they were calling first, right?
Yeah,
After Chelsea. But if we're being generous here, it's a bit of a free roll of the dice for Frank, isn't it? Because this season, yes, okay, the Champions League is right there, quarterfinals, Real Madrid, that's hugely important. In the league, it's a bit of a write-off, isn't it? This season. So he's got the unenviable task of going up against Carlo Ancelotti, another of your old managers, John, in the Champions League, which is tough. But, for Chelsea, just to hit the reset button, I wonder why they didn't go in for an available manager, whether it was Nagelsmann, whether it was Enrique as well, who is certainly in the frame.
Yeah. I think you've said it all. I think when it comes to the remaining games now, I think Frank, when you look at it, it's like he's got nothing to lose. Yeah. I think when it comes to the Champions League, I think everybody thinks that it's going to be a Madrid win. But I hope Chelsea can be able to do it. But when you look at the two teams, who's in form and who's not in form, I think Madrid are playing really well. I mean, they beat Barcelona 4-0 last.
Yeah, they were class last night.
So I mean, if you look at both teams, you look at that matchup and you think, okay, Madrid are going to go through. But I hope my old team do it. I hope that Frank comes in and bring the magic back in the club. But when it comes to selecting the managers, there's so many world-class managers still available. But I think the club wants to take their time now to make the right decision.
That's it.
Given that they've won the Champions League in 2012 with a former Chelsea player as caretaker boss, do you think did Todd Bowley come in and go, hey, when did we last win the Champions League? 2012, former caretaker? Let's get Frank back.
I hope so.
That seems to be the kind of logic.
I hope that's going to be the magic. But I think it's going to be a tough game for Chelsea, Madrid. It's going to be a tough game. But when you look at both teams, like I said, who's in form and who's not in form, you can say Madrid will go through on that game.
You know my connections to Graham Potter, so I will hold my own counsel. I've already voiced my opinion on what I think of Chelsea's decision to fire a very good man, a man who I still believe is a top coach, and he will go on to prove that elsewhere. Just hasn't worked out at Chelsea. Were you surprised at the timing of the sacking, John? I know we've had conversations off air. You were hearing whispers that perhaps not all was well. I mean, your own thoughts on the sacking of Graham?
Well, I think when you look at that, I think, was he given enough time? I think so. I think when you look at where the club is now, I mean, what is it, 11th?
11th, yeah.
At the table.
7 months.
So when you look at it, I mean, he's been given a lot of time. I think if he was the Roman Abramovich era,
he would have been gone 4 months ago.
That chopper would have
exactly. So was he given enough time? I think so. I think the club made the right decision. Was the club too big for him to manage? Maybe. Because when I look at him sometimes on the touchline, it's like he doesn't really know what to do. He's not communicating to the players. He doesn't tell them what to do on the pitch.
But do you like that? Do you like managers? I've always wondered that.
No. I like a manager who's always
on at you.
Who's always motivated, who wants to be very passionate on the touchline. And when they scream at you, it's like they're telling you what to do. Sometimes players need a bit of a kick up the backside, to be able to wake up and. But with Graham, I wasn't seeing that. And also with Frank, I wasn't seeing that. I hope now when he comes back, he will be more like, like a Klopp or Pep. You can see these managers, they're always emotional. They are it's like they want to be on the pitch. I want to see that with Frank now when he comes back.
Is there something specific about Chelsea there that favours managers who've got a bit of an ego and they are characters, they've got charisma? Is there something specific about the club? Did you always feel when a manager walked in, you could kind of read their body language, their charisma, and you think, he's going to be a success?
Sometimes, yeah. I think the only manager I didn't get that from was Carlo Ancelotti because he was so quiet. And there was a time, sometimes you couldn't understand how to approach him because he was so quiet, doesn't speak a lot. But his man management was the best. Yeah. He could get the best out of players. You can see he went from Everton to Madrid and start winning trophies. He's not always that manager who's very emotional on the touchline, but the way he passes his message across is always in the dressing room and always on the training ground. And sometimes managers want to do that because they feel like, okay, all through the week, I've shown you what to do on the pitch. Now is your time to go do it. I don't want to bother you on the pitch, but some managers want to be involved. They want to be, very emotional, engaged on the pitch. And that's what I want to see. I really want to see that for Frank now. When he goes back, he's got a second chance. The fans love him, the club love him, and I want to see him do really well.
What was Carlo like? I want to stick on Carlo Ancelotti because he's been in the news, he's been in the headlines. I know Brazil national team have been courting his signature, apparently. Yeah. I read yesterday his son Davide, who's been part of his coaching staff, he may well be stepping out on his own with FC Basel over in Switzerland. Okay. What was Carlo like on the training ground, John? Would he assess and then come in and give an arm round a little cuddle and pass on little bits and pieces? He doesn't strike me as being whistle around the neck. I know he was in his younger days.
Yeah,
was that?
He is whistle around his neck. Yeah, he is whistle around his neck. He's that guy. He's always involved on the training ground. On the training ground is where you see Carlo always trying to communicate to the players. But one thing I will say that his training method is, for me, probably the best that all throughout my career, because
as well as the man management.
Yeah.
Wow.
His training method was, we were always playing games. Footballers, sometimes when you go into training and you look from the top and you look on the pitch and you see what you're gonna do, the exercises or the games that you're gonna
oh, not this again. I hate you, says.
But with Carlo, for some reason, it was always fun. It was always fun. We enjoyed our time on the pitch. There was lots of short games. And then at the end of it, we play like a two-side game because players who are not been involved on the weekend, they want to play games. And for them, training on the Monday, it's like games because it's a two-side game. It's short games, quick, sharp. And then we expand the game to a two-side. And then you can see the tackles. So you feel like even if you're not part of the game, you feel like you're still getting enough out of the training. So that's why we really enjoyed Carlo. And then, his man management was, for me, a different class.
And the most dull training sessions that you took part of at Chelsea?
Oh, that's a long list there.
Oh, wow, it's a long list.
It's a long list.
Basically, it was just Carlos that were fun.
I'll probably go with Benitez.
They were just
Benitez, yeah.
Structured.
Joyless. Structured. There was this exercise he used to do, and for some reason, we football players, we couldn't understand anything he was doing. He was showing the defenders how to step back, how to do the doggy bag. But that is something you learn from,
as a kid.
Exactly. And he's showing this like, no, do it this way. And they're like, okay, I've done it. This is like, okay, change, do it that way. And they spend about 20, 30 minutes or 40 minutes doing that. And then the game has to be stopped. And then we're all freezing. It's just not pleasant.
Oh, my God.
So for me, definitely Rafa.
Can't imagine Rafa demonstrating that either.
He does with his Adidas Copa Mundial boots.
Yeah, listen, I love the Copa Mundial.
I love the Copa Mundial.
I will hear nothing bad said about that. Coming back to Frank, John, it settles something for me. It's often said in kind of footballing circles that he's super intelligent. You read everywhere that his IQ is 150, which if it is true, puts him in the 0.5% of most intelligent people on the planet. Is he perpetuating that myth, or is he very intelligent?
On the football pitch, for me, we could all see he's a very clever football player. Very, very clever football player. He knows when to be in the right place at the right time. his runs, his timing, his passing ability. I think people didn't give Frank enough credit, you know. I know he got the credit that he deserved from the Chelsea fans, but when you look at worldwide, I think when you look at worldwide, and people always compared him with Steven Gerrard, and Gerrard always got the praise from everybody, but Frank was, but for me and for us, he was such an important football player because he was so clever. I mean,
did you need him in the quizzes? I would imagine, like every football club.
Yeah.
The quizzes at the
end.
But
he doesn't get involved. Frank is very quiet. He sits on his own on the bus. He doesn't really get involved. He does his own thing, but he's very intelligent. Yeah. When it comes to quizzes, he doesn't
get involved.
No, Frank. Yeah,
he's too intelligent for school.
He's way too intelligent for us now. He's thinking, no, I don't want to get involved with you guys. But no, when it comes to that, you know, he sits on his own. He's always with this game, you know, I don't know.
Sudoku?
You know, the one with the paper where you...
Crosswords.
Yeah, crosswords. He's always
he's a crossword fan.
So he takes his bag, he takes it out. He's there, you know, trying to get the words.
Is your banter that bad? He's got to do crosswords, John.
It is. He doesn't get involved. I mean, when we're flying and the guys, you know, they're playing the computer game,
Football Manager, and
he's got his pen and paper out.
Yeah, he doesn't get involved.
I've got to ask about, you know, the culture of the sort of sacking of managers and the supposed role that fans and players have in this process. Because, you know, Todd Boehly comes in. He says, forget the old era. Now we have a long-term vision now for the club, which didn't turn out to be that long-term. It turned out to be about seven months.
Don't remind me.
So, you know, but I guess it's proof that results will always destroy any long-term vision. Short-term results will always destroy that vision. So as the results are getting worse and the fans are getting ever increasingly upset and the players are getting ever more agitated and maybe unhappy with how things are going with the manager, how are these factors influencing the ultimate decision to fire the manager?
Oh, it does. I mean, like you said, I think it's turned into a result business.
Yeah.
You have to. It doesn't matter who you are. You have to always, week in, week out, give the fans what they want, give the club what they want. Which is 3 points. And when you look at Pep Guardiola with everything that he's won at City, you know, there's what was it 3 weeks ago or a few months ago, people were saying, you know,
could be the last season.
Exactly. Yeah. But now, you know, the club has backed him. He's still there. When you look at Jurgen Klopp as well, the same. He's still there. So these clubs, they know that sometimes stability is the key, but it is a business. It is a result business. When you're not providing results, I'm sorry, you have to go. And the fans play a big role in that. When the fans are getting frustrated, they come on a Saturday, they don't see the team performing, they don't see the players fighting for the club. And they get frustrated, and once they start whistling, you know, that's it. I mean, I'm sorry, the manager has to go.
It seems like Todd Boehly wanted to continue with Graham in a way, because I think the season. Okay, Graham's in the quarterfinals of the Champions League. Yeah. That's still live. The league is a write-off. There's no top four for Chelsea. It's a dead season in that regard. So it's a weird decision with 10 games left to go to get rid of him now, when I think he wanted to give him that summer transfer to get all of these new players that they've signed and try and get some semblance of cohesion there. But yet I think he's ultimately bowed or caved to just sheer anger and you know, discontentment among the fan base.
Yeah, but when you look at the club as well, I mean, we're talking about we're trying to get to fourth place. You know, if we lose a few more games, we'll be in the relegation battle. That's where the club is at the minute.
It's 11th, you're right.
When you look at the games, the remaining games, if Potter was there, was Chelsea going to win it? Maybe not, and that's why they've decided to make that decision. I think they've made that decision based on the fact that if they don't change the manager right now, the club might be dragged into a relegation battle. And that's not what we want. We don't want to see a club like Chelsea dragged, you know, into a relegation battle, which we've never been there. It's not where we are. It's not where we should be. But it looked like that's where we're headed. So, I mean, I think that's why the club made a decision.
If they'd had a plan, I would have maybe supported it. There's no plan. Bringing Frank back, nada. Zero plan there.
And actually, I saw an article, and I can't remember the name of the website, but it was an article on the most underrated footballers of all time, John. And your name was in there.
I think John wrote it.
Your name was in there as among the most underrated footballers of all time. Do you consider yourself underrated?
I don't know. I think mostly for the Chelsea fans, I think, they probably think I was, I'm a bit underrated. But it's not something that really got to me. I mean, I was just there doing my work, enjoying playing football and, enjoying being at the club. But when it comes down to the national team, I was always someone who's more... you can't look at me as someone who was underrated. I was more of a...
Integral.
I was more of the...
Yeah,
I was the talisman when it comes to the national team. Well, obviously, at Chelsea, like the big names, the John Terrys, the Lampard, the Drogbas, all these guys, obviously, they were always taking the glory, every weekend, So for us, some of the players, it was a bit of, we were there, but, doing our bits to help the club win, and which is what we did. We worked as a team. Not everybody was getting the credits that they deserve, but, that's football.
Honestly speaking, did you ever get jealous of the fact that they were maybe getting the plaudits?
Yeah, of course I did. Because I want to be, I want to win. I want to win. And I think when I joined the club, first time I joined the club, for me, it was something that I had to struggle with. I had to struggle with it. I come back and I feel like I've had a great game. I've had an amazing game. But then nobody writes about it. Nobody talks about it. And then they do one thing, and then it's all over the papers. I'm like, what is this? And then, you got to understand the system. And then finally I understood the system, which is something I probably wouldn't talk on air. But obviously there is a system that you have to go through to make sure, every weekend, in the front newspapers.
Right.
And so, let's leave it that way.
Claude Makelele gave you some advice in your early days about accepting that kind of his role.
Of course. He was someone who played for Madrid and even naming that position, his position with his name. He still wasn't getting the credits that he deserved. He comes out every weekend, and obviously the Lampards, the Drogbas, the John Terrys, they take the front, newspapers. And this is a guy who's played so many games for Chelsea. He was integral in every game. The midfield wouldn't stand without him. But obviously, the press don't want to write about it because his style is boring. Our style is boring, according to them. So they don't want to talk about it. But as long as the team was winning, for us, we're happy.
Got to ask about players as a kind of cabal, as a collective, John. We've seen the... Let's be frank about it, derogatory headlines in the last couple of days. The fact that rumoured the players were calling Graham Harry behind his back. They were calling him Hogwarts and all of this stuff.
I saw that. That was horrible.
And I've heard different stories. Listen, I've heard two sides to this particular story, but I wonder, and I'm popping you on the spot, does it happen, John? I look at your era, your John Terrys, your Didier Drogba's, your Frank Lampards, your Petr Cechs, your Michael Ballacks. Mm-hmm. I can't imagine you guys taking the mick, but maybe you did. Did you? Does that happen in dressing rooms? Do you take the mick? Are you so openly disrespectful to a manager?
I think for us,
that smile would suggest that you...
I think for us back then, no, I wouldn't say that. I think when you look at our team, obviously, the players we had then, sorry to say, they were men. Yeah. They were men. They were grown men. And when they had a problem with the manager, they face it. They go face to face. There was nothing. There was no hiding. There was no talking behind the backs. Because sometimes when you do that, in my league, someone might go and tell the manager, So those players understood that. They understood the politics of the game. So I've seen where players, were not happy on a Saturday. They come back. We go to training on a Sunday, Monday. They change, and straight away you see them walk straight to the manager's office. Go knock the door and say, I want to have a word. That's how big they were. Because for them, it wasn't about talking behind the backs, making mocks, about the manager. For them, it was going, clearing the air and talking and saying, listen, I'm not happy. I want to play more. I don't care if the player who's playing in front of me now is playing much better. I'm Michael Ballack. I'm Frank Lampard. I'm John Terry. I want to play. And then before you know it, the player who's playing really well is out of the team because the club also gets involved. The club is like, okay, now John Terry has to play.
So strength of personality counts for a lot.
Of course it does. When I was young, when we came in, the likes of me, Solomon Kalou, we were the youngest players then. We couldn't say a word.
No.
Yeah, we couldn't say a word. It took us almost 4 or 5 years to be able to say, okay, now we are, now we're becoming part of the team. The cabal, they're accepting us. They have to accept you. And
so
that was part of it.
The only way, if you are not one of those kind of premier top dogs,
of course,
you've just got to play lights out every single week.
Yeah. You just have to accept what you get. You go to training, you enjoy yourself. If they speak to you, you speak to them. If they don't speak to you, you just keep quiet.
On that front, because I find it fascinating, John, was there a moment, was there a game where you felt accepted? If you and Solomon and other young players are looking up to these elder statesmen, the figureheads of the club, and you're trying to gain their respect, is there a moment where you think, yes, that was it? That was where John and Frank and Didier said, John, you're now one of us.
Yeah. I think for me, probably I'm looking at the season 2009, 2010. Carlo Ancelotti, during Carlo Ancelotti's time. I think for me, that was my initiation time. I thought that was when I knew, as I've arrived. Because I played a lot of games, and that was when me and Frank, because we play close to each other, we started having before that when he tells me something to do on the pitch, I just keep quiet and do it. But then during that season, I started knowing, okay,
answering back.
I started answering back. We started having a bit of toggle fight but that was just part of the game. We wanted to win. We wanted what's gonna be best for the team on that pitch. On that very moment.
So you'd earned your right to have a voice there.
Respect. And then when I told him what to do as well, he wasn't angry because he wasn't saying, oh, okay, you shouldn't speak to me like that. But before that, I couldn't. If you say a word, you go in the dressing room in the second half and they will rip you apart. But then from that 2010, when I answer back, even to John Terry or Drogba, they knew, okay, he's now becoming part of us.
On that point then, which player didn't understand that? Which player came in and was a bit mouthy too early, perhaps didn't earn the respect as you did? You knew your role.
Yeah.
And Frank and the boys respected you because you've earned your stripes.
Yeah.
Is there a player who came in and thought, tell you what, John, do this. Tell you what, Frank, do this?
Obviously, I would say, but he was a big player when he came in. For me, it was Michael Ballack. For us, it was Michael Ballack. He came in and he obviously thought, I am Michael Ballack.
Yeah.
And
but he is German after all. He knows best.
Exactly. So he walks through the door, and then he was trying to tell the guys what to do, and they were looking at him like, "What is this?" I could, So we could all see the Didiers, the Lampard, the John. They started getting a bit like, okay, who's this guy? Okay, like what is this? But that was just Ballack, and there was few times where they had a massive argument, and they had to tell him, listen, you've just walked through the door. You need to calm down and look at the way we do things and follow. Don't come here to try to change. You have to follow. And I think he understood that, and then he started quieting down, and then they started accepting me a little bit, and then it all became fine.
Well, I've just made my Graham Potter pitch. Yay or nay? Yes or no? Should he have stayed in the job after that, John?
No.
It's a definite no.
It's a no. It's a no. Sorry, Chris.
John.
I don't think John would have ever given him the job.
I definitely wouldn't have, to be honest. No, he's done well for Brighton, but I don't think he was a Chelsea manager.
Fair. Definitely not.
And okay, how do we make sense of what's going on with this new Chelsea revolution under Todd Boehly? 17 signings since the start of this season. Tuchel ousted after 8 weeks of the season?
Something
not even that, right? No, it was.
Well, Graham came in September.
So Tuchel given almost no time whatsoever.
I think 4 weeks. Like
it's ridiculous.
And then obviously now Frank is an interim manager. 17 signings. A lot of them would seem to be vastly overpriced as well.
Yeah.
And then, Enzo Fernandez looks like he's going to be a good player, but he's still a punt for 105 million.
5 million.
Couldn't lace your boots, John.
Record. But he is still, he's not a finished product, is he?
No,
they haven't bought one single world-class star for 600 million, and they haven't brought a striker.
No.
So, how do you, as a man who loves Chelsea, how do you make sense of that?
Well, I don't think anyone can make sense of what's going on. Like you've just said, players are just coming in through the door, and it's just I read like articles like they say Todd Burley is looking at Arsenal's radar, whoever Arsenal is going for.
Yeah, he's just stealing their wanted list.
He's going still, and it's just players coming in and. Some players, when you look at them, we've mentioned a few players' names here. They're not Chelsea kind of players. I mean, they, some of them are not good on the ball. But yeah, I think when you look at the way that the team was playing before Potter got sacked, it was just nothing happening. There was no spark. There was just nothing going on. When you look at the games, you're like, okay, where's the goal gonna come from? Where's the magic gonna come from? I know they've missed N'Golo Kante. We spoke off air about him. I mean, he's a massive, massive player for the club, and it's a shame that he's just come back now that Potter has been sacked. But I hope we find a rhythm back, and with Frank coming back, he knows the club, he knows most of the players, he's worked with them before, and let's hope we'll start playing well and getting some good results.
The great Chelsea teams have always had great strikers. Yeah. In recent years, and obviously Didier Drogba, Diego Costa as well. Mm-hmm. That's important for any club. I mean, I know we've gone away from the traditional number 9, but big Chelsea teams have always seemed to have that traditional number 9, and yet they're not really either available. I mean, I know, Chris, you've got a theory about a compatriot of John's.
I'd love to get your thoughts, Victor Osimhen, because he is someone who has been lighting up Serie A. There's no doubt about that for Napoli. Of course, a compatriot of yours. He has made no secrets of the fact that the English Premier League is a league that he'd quite relish the opportunity to come and play. Chelsea have a Victor Osimhen-sized hole for me. Man United are going to be in the market for number 9.
United,
How good is he? Let's start there, Victor.
Again, if we're talking about Chelsea bringing in number 9, I think when you mentioned the number 9s that you've mentioned, I think there's a finished article. When you're talking about a finished article, a finished complete striker, and those players, you wouldn't get them at the age of 20, 19. Those players start to get mature at the age of 27, 28. But obviously, clubs are not buying those strikers anymore. It's about who can we buy and sell for the next 5-10 years. It's about business. It is about results, but also mostly about business
side, yeah.
So when you look at those strikers, they're available, but they're not 21, 20 years old. And this is the kind of players Chelsea are buying right now. And when you look at Victor Osimhen, I mean, he's doing really well for Napoli. He's playing really well, and he's going to be on the market in the summer. I think Man United are going to go for him definitely.
Do you think he'd be good in the Premier League?
We spoke about him before as well. He's doing well for me. I think Victor scores goals. That's what he does. He scores goals. Is he very technically good?
No,
not as much. No, but he will get you goals. He would get you goals for sure.
I'm loving you lit up. I'm going to come back here. Man United, what are you hearing, John? You've got me excited, being a Man U fan. Do you think, I'll look at his skill set, you think he would work at United? With the Rashfords around him, Fernandes, Sancho, if he can get into form, Garnacho.
Yeah.
Does Victor complement what they have?
I think so. I think he would be the perfect fit for them. I think he would be the finished article for this United team, who are playing some really good football now. They're back playing the way United should play. But again, they're missing that out-and-out striker. And if they could be able to go for him, and if they could be able to get him, I think he would be the icing on the cake for them.
Erik ten Hag and Man United, as many clubs do nowadays, John, it's not just about the player, it's about the personality. Mm-hmm. Is he a good lad? Does he live his life clean?
Oh, good boy, lovely boy. Very respectful, down to earth, humble. He's such. I didn't get to play with him in the national team for such a long time, but the period that I got to play with him, he was a really nice guy. Lovely boy.
You've got me excited about Victor
Coming
Osimhen.
back to the 17 new players, and obviously the comparisons with your time at Chelsea, where you had that nucleus who were mainstays. They had longevity. Frank, Terry, John Terry, all these guys. How does the team dynamic evolve then if you've got just players just thrown into a big soup of footballers? Like who's kind of how's the pecking order evolving in that dressing room? And obviously you need that to create a successful team. You need that strength and that unity. And I just wonder how you can't just magic that out of thin air. It's got to grow from somewhere and evolve from somewhere. So how does it work in that scenario?
Obviously, when you look at the team back then, if you are going to Chelsea, you sign and you're going to Chelsea, you know for sure, one thing is for sure, you're going to meet the likes of Frank Lampard, John Terry, Didier Drogba, Peter Cech. They will be there. But now when you sign for Chelsea, even before you sign, if you're going to join them in the summer, you don't know who you're going to meet in the summer. So you need those backbones, in every team to be able to succeed. And we were so lucky we had those guys. They were the backbones of the team. Whichever player was coming in, they have to direct you, on the way we work, the way things are done at the club, the way things are done in the dressing room. They were very, very cruel. Sometimes they were very harsh. Sometimes, which they have to be. But you have to take it. If you want to be accepted in the club, in that dressing room, you have to be ready to take it, because sometimes it's very unpleasant.
Did you ever get absolutely mullered, as I would say in the UK? Did you get absolutely battered by these guys? Was there a game? Was there a moment where it was John? Not good enough.
Yeah.
Anything stand out?
Yeah. Obviously, one player who always used to give it to me, obviously was JT, because I was always close to him. But yeah, on the pitch, he's always, it was like, wake the, wake the F up. You know what I mean? It's like, what are you doing? So, but we had towards the years, going, we started to grow kind of a friendship. It became a bit more, whispering to me, like, come on. Come on. But no, I didn't get something, that crazy. But there was always players who was getting it. Mostly it was from the managers. And
on that point, because I'm fascinated, and Robbie's cottoned on to something here about the soup, if you will, and finding characters that fit. Were you born into that Chelsea dressing room? Did it suit your personality, or were you nurtured into it, John? Does that make sense? Did you come in, watch, study, and then adapt to fit in? Or did you always have the character that could take a rollicking, that could be respectful, that could take a step back, survey before stepping forward and saying, I'm here?
Yeah, no, definitely that was the case. Obviously, growing up, playing for the Nigerian national team under 17, I was the leader. I was the main man. But then, obviously that's a different story altogether. And then when you come into this club, when I came into Chelsea, I had to sit down, because you think it's going to be the same. It's never the same. You walking in and you're seeing all these big players, amazing players that, you grew up watching, and you're sitting next to them, and then you think they're your friends. Try to speak to them. They'd be like, who are you? You know what I mean? They would give you time. You need time for them to accept you. And that's what I thought. I walked in, I was like, okay. Didier Drogba is from Africa. Let me try to. And you could see he will give you the cold shoulder. You give you the cold shoulder. Be like, mate, calm down a bit. So
it's going to be a loss of my street cred if I'm seen.
Exactly. He's like, calm down a bit. And you needed to be accepted, and once they accept you, you become their friend, and it's then you start enjoying the whole place. But until you do that, it's a very terrible place to be.
And I think maybe the modern way of running football, and Chelsea and Todd Bowley are obviously an extreme example of this, but I think that's been forgotten to some extent. And I have no insight on this. It's just I'm just guessing that. That's a very old traditional kind of way of running things that I think has been. Now we're dealing with a footballing stock market.
Where
you're just buying exactly.
It's about the money now. It's not about the passion. It's not about, you don't see those things in the dressing room anymore. And when I look at this Chelsea team, who do you think there is the cabal? Who do you think is the person that is running the dressing room? There is none. When I look at them,
there's got to be none.
There's none.
I agree with that.
There's none. Even Aspilicueta that has been there for a long time. He's such a quiet, lovely guy. But he doesn't look to me like someone who's going to be like a cabal. Sorry to say, but you need those.
But I think that's why Casemiro has had such an impact on Man United, because I think he's come in. He's obviously brought in Bruno Fernandes, who's the captain, and they have sort of created a nucleus of leaders and I know you've got your thoughts on Bruno Fernandes, but I think Casemiro was the catalyst.
And the other one is, and his English is very good, is Lisandro Martinez. There's a guy that demands a certain standard, not just on a Saturday, Monday through Friday. Casemiro, Martinez. I think Varane has been given a voice now as well. There are key men, and you just have to see them when they win big games. They're up to the fans. They're doing everything as fans. You're buying into it. So you're absolutely right. You need that nucleus. You need that cabal.
You do. And I think Casemiro as well. When you look at him, when he was at Madrid, he was one of those guys in that cabal. So he knows how the cabal works. And then coming into Manchester United, it was so easy for him to walk in straight into that team. Because and those guys have to accept him because he's been at Real Madrid and he was among those guys running the club.
I don't want to be harsh, but it shows you Harry Maguire, who was captain, he's just been supplanted. Martinez, Casemiro, Varane been given an extra voice. I think now Harry's just been left behind. I don't want to say proper leaders, but kind of proper leaders in that regard. Right then, final 5 minutes of our chat, and then we will welcome in for part 3 somewhere down the line. There is always so much to discuss with John, and we've been talking about the unique pressures. I, for one, will stick by. I have a lot of sympathy for Graham Potter's demise at Chelsea. You know the unique pressures that you're under when playing for a club of that stature, John. And I want to actually take you back to a story you shared with us during our World Cup coverage. Because this is a pressure that no footballer needs to come under. I'm going back to the 2018 World Cup. You're due to play Argentina. You get a phone call. Your father's been kidnapped. What the heck? Where do we start with that story?
I mean, it was horrible. 2 hours before the game, I got a phone call from my brother saying, Dad has been kidnapped. I mean, I didn't know where to begin or where to start. And I remember I was, getting ready. I came out of the shower. I was getting dressed, putting my boots, and then my phone was ringing. I was like, who's this? And it kept ringing, so I had to pick up. It was my brother. It was like, I know you're about to go play a game, but this is what's happening. Dad has been kidnapped. I'm like, what? Yeah, and I spoke to him. I was like, okay, what are they saying? What are the demands? What are they asking for? What is it? So I put the phone down, and I just couldn't move. I thought I was gonna throw up. I started shivering. I thought I was gonna throw up, and I was just sitting in my room. I was like, who am I gonna talk to? Who am I gonna go? Shall I walk out of the door and go tell the manager that I can't play the game? I was like, I took 20 minutes. I was trying to decide what to do or who to talk to. I just couldn't talk to anyone. And then at the end of the day, I finally decided, you know what? I'm just going to go face it. I'm the captain of the team, of the country. And this is a very crucial game against Argentina. Yeah, exactly. It was the last game. It was the last game for us. Either we qualify or we go out. And for me to go share that news with the players, with the team, it's just going to demoralize the players, demoralize the whole team. And I decided to stomach it in and not tell anyone, and then go out and play the game. And nobody knew about it. I just had to tell them after the game, and everyone was shocked. Everyone was like, "How the hell did you play this game?
And how did you? I mean, what was your feeling throughout the game?
Feeling throughout the game, a few times I thought I was going to throw up on the pitch. I kept drinking water. A few times I thought, you know what? I think I'm going to throw up, because all that kept going through my head is, what's going to happen? Is my dad going to get shot? Is he going to get killed? Is he? And when I spoke to my brother, it was like, he's been beaten up really badly.
And they wanted a ransom from you.
Yeah, of course they wanted the ransom.
They targeted him because of you, I'm assuming. Yeah. And obviously with the expectation that you would pay whatever it was they asked for.
Yeah, that was the expectation. They said, listen, we know he's Mikel. We know he's going to pay. If he doesn't pay, we're going to shoot. They're like, we have nothing to lose. We're just going to shoot his dad and just dump him somewhere. That was really horrible. And after the game, I got back on the phone, trying to negotiate with them, speak to them, see where they are. They were calling some ridiculous amount of money from start, and then we started negotiating and still had to pay some crazy amount of money.
You did?
Yeah, I had to get my dad out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is this something that's prevalent? This is a crazy situation for you to have to live with day to day, is it not?
Yeah, I think even now I still go through it sometimes when I get flashbacks of it. I'm like,
oh my God. And I couldn't believe because I actually spoke to the guys on the phone, and and they put my dad on the phone. There was a gun pointing to his head. He said, they're going to kill me. They're going to shoot me. Try to see how you can solve it. Wow. Yeah. So, it's a horrible story. I think a few days ago, or a couple of weeks ago, obviously I haven't told my kids about it, but then they looked on my phone. They was like, that John Obi Mikel's dad kidnapped. They're like, Daddy, what's this? Like,
oh my Lord.
Yeah, I was like, okay. That was a long time ago. They're like, what do you mean long time ago? It says on the story. I was like, no, Grandpa is fine. Don't worry about it. So I still haven't shared the story to them. Obviously, they're young kids. They're 7. So it's a horrible story. So one day when they grow up, I'll be able to share the story with them.
But you got Dad out. You got Dad out safely.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. Yeah. Listen, John, part 2's in the can. We need you back for part 3s, 4 and 5. Your life is a remarkable one, and you tell it always with a smile on your face. Thank you so much for sharing that particular tale with us again. That is the hour done and dusted. I know this is going to be going up on YouTube. I know all of your fans are going to be saying, too short. Welcome the big man in.
Thanks,
again,
guys.
Sunday
Thanks for having me.
Brilliant, John.
It's always amazing.
What a pleasure.
Thanks.
Dubai Eye 103.8.
Join the conversation.